You're listening to Community Forum on KCCC 930 AM, sponsored by Eddy County, honoring God, country, and family, thriving with industry since 1889.
Thank you for listening to Community Forum. My name's Johnny Chandler. I'm the owner of KCCC 930 AM and the host of Community Forum. And with me today, for the first time since I've been running Community Forum, is Mike Antiporda. Mike Antiporda is the executive director of the Carlsbad Community Foundation, a well-known foundation here in Carlsbad that I'm still learning about just 3 years into the residency here in Carlsbad. So, Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Johnny. How are you?
Good. I'm glad you came on. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for the
invite. I appreciate
it.
I think it's kind of a fitting first interview for me since I've started Community Forum and having Carlsbad Community Foundation on because we are right in the middle of Giving Week.
That's right. It's at a big time.
Okay, so we pre-record everything here at the station. So we are right in the middle of Giving Week. So right now it's September 24th. Giving Week goes from September 22nd to September 28th. Before we get into Giving Week specifically, because that is the lead, let's bury that for a second, right? And let's have you tell me a little bit about the Carlsbad Community Foundation, how you got started, what your mission is.
Sure. I love talking about the foundation because no matter how many times I've told people, there's always people that maybe didn't know something or maybe they've not really heard about us until they've actually had some type of interaction. So I really do love talking about it, and people are usually surprised to know how long we've actually been here in the community.
Right.
So the foundation began back in 1978, and it was created after a nonprofit hospital closed. And of course, when a nonprofit closes, all those assets have to go to another nonprofit.
Right.
And so what happened was the creation of what they called at the time the Carlsbad Foundation for Health.
Okay, right.
Which makes a lot of sense since it was coming from that industry. And so, but it really didn't take very long before the people involved decided that there was so much more that this organization could do for the community than just health-related items. And so they began to expand and then eventually became the Carlsbad Community Foundation. So we've been at it now since 1978.
Right.
And
so that's going to be 45 years. Or going on 46.
Yeah, it's 46 now.
Right.
Yeah, and so we're actually kind of excited because 50 is coming up, and we hope to have a big celebration.
Right.
And but I guess we'll be patient. We'll wait for that.
Right. So how long have you been executive director of the foundation?
So actually, just the other day, I reached my 10-year anniversary with the foundation.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you very much. Well, it's kind of a surprise to me. The time went so fast.
Right.
But I had worked at WIP for about 21 years prior.
Okay.
And so...
what was your expertise at WIP?
I was in communications.
Oh, okay. Great. Yeah, I'm a communications guy.
Yeah,
wonderful. Right.
Exactly. So it was a great move over, and what an amazing organization to be able to step into after it had already been here for quite some years and was very successful, and to be able to step in and lead it, and hopefully we've made it grow and we've done some different things, and that's been a lot of fun.
Right. So you have been executive director for 10 years now officially. Who's your first executive director?
So the very first person to serve in this role was John Mills.
Okay.
He had actually been the hospital administrator of the hospital that closed.
Which also makes a lot of sense when it was the Carlsbad Foundation of Health.
That's right. That's right. And so the board of the hospital, they were the ones that converted over to the foundation, but it was really, from what I understand, his vision. I consider John Mills to be our founder. Because not only was he the executive director, I think it just wouldn't have happened without his thought process and pushing it in that direction. So.
Right. So on the website, I saw that he served as the first executive director for quite a long time.
Yeah.
I think 78 to 1995.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Basically, it was founding to 95. Right. So
you do your research.
Yeah, I'm
did. Impressed.
I read the website a little bit before we started. But my other question is, but you told me before we started recording that you're the third executive director. So let's talk about number 2 real quick. Who was that?
So the second executive director was Jim Harrison.
Okay.
And he was in that role from 1995 until 2014.
Oh, okay. So how many years was that then?
So he was there for 19 years.
19 years. Okay.
And John was there for 17. And
All right.
so
if you're
basically,
anything short of that, you haven't won, right?
That's right. And I'm still the new kid. And I still keep claiming that. Anytime I don't know something, I'm new.
Yeah.
And
You're always the new person until somebody else starts after you, no matter how many years it is, right?
I am. I have at least between 7 and 9 more years to claim that I'm new. And then I think I'm going to have to drop that.
Well, I think that speaks very solid of your organization. The idea that when an executive director takes over, it's an organization that supports the executive director, but also strategically plans for the long term. When you're an organization that's been around as long as yours and you're only the third executive director on 10 years, it really speaks to the commitment and the quality of the individuals that the board of director hires for that job, I think.
Well, thanks. I
appreciate. Yeah, there you go.
I'm not going to argue with you on that. No, I think we as an organization have been really very fortunate. We've had good people, not only in the executive director role, but we've had good people on staff. We've had a tremendous board members who have guided the organization through all the ups and downs of the times, and really, like you said, it's the long term. It's the long game that we play, and we want to be here for many, many more years, and that's how we best fulfill our charitable mission.
So I do have a question for you, but I want to save it for the end, but I might forget it. So I'm going to mention it now, but let you answer it later at the end of the day, right? So before we end the interview, I do want to know, in your 10 years, what has been your biggest challenge at the Carlsbad Community Foundation? But that sounds like that could be a better closing question, right? So let's go back out of order and go back to the lead and talk to me a little bit about Giving Week, Community Giving Week. Where did this come from? How did it start? And then I also remember before we started, you're also saying that got something we brought back this year as well when it comes to Giving Week.
That's right.
Right. So that's like 3 questions in one. Go right ahead.
I know. I hope I remember all of them by the time I finish. Okay, but Community Giving Week. So a lot of people ask us, what exactly is that? And so for many years, the foundation had an annual event. It was, at one time, it was a dinner, and then we eventually changed over to where it is a reception and not so long. And every year we would use it to celebrate philanthropy, because really that's what we're about. We're about connecting donors in this community with charitable needs, right? Not only today, but also in the long term. And so that was the model for many years. But what happened, that was interesting back around COVID, is we couldn't have a community reception or a dinner or anything.
You can hang out in the park 6 feet apart if you wanted, right?
I know. Yes, they wave across the parking lot, and that was about it. And so we couldn't have what we would normally do. So what we really set out to do was say, how can we continue to celebrate philanthropy and not just bypass it? Because even during COVID, it was still important.
Sometimes even more so.
It was very important because we did a lot at that time, because a lot of our local nonprofits picked up a lot of slack. There was a lot of needs that were unmet without them. So what it turned into was, instead of having our event, what we would do is we would have an entire week where we celebrated philanthropy, which we promoted it on social media, and we encouraged people to give to the charitable organization or causes that were most important to them and near and dear to their hearts. Mm-hmm. And then also we would encourage them to give to the foundations so that we can continue our charitable mission. And then we would highlight the work in the community that's being done and just really make as much as we possibly could with the week, given the circumstances. And everybody that lived through that, we know it was rough. It was really difficult. And so we did that, and it was so successful that it never went away. Yeah. And so now we still have our community reception every year, but we have it during Community Giving Week, and we use the week to promote nonprofits, not just us, because as a community foundation, we support all philanthropy in the community.
Right.
It doesn't matter whether it goes through us or not. Of course, we love it when it does, because we think we can help people in a very effective way. But if someone wants to give directly to another organization, that is still fantastic. And so we encourage all of it.
So giving is just giving, right?
It is, absolutely.
Right. So on that spirit, we appreciate if you give to any organization, nonprofit or not. But this is an opportunity for you to tell people how to help give to the Carlsbad Community Foundation on your website if you wanted.
That's right, sure. Well, and two, for Giving Week, there's lots of different ways you can do it, for other organizations and for us. But for our purposes too, we have something special that we offer that we only do during Giving Week.
Okay.
And that's our matching promotion. And so what we do is any donation to one of our endowment funds, we've got different types of funds, but a good number of them are endowments. Any donations to those endowments are matched dollar for dollar up to $100 for the week.
And what organizations allow that to happen?
Actually, it's all us.
This is the foundation. All right, great.
Yeah, it's just all us. And we set some money aside to encourage people to give, and so that it makes their charitable dollars go further.
So does Carlsbad Community Foundation, do you run specific programs directly, or do you kind of take in the donations and the dollars and distribute them out through organizations that are already doing the great work?
Right. That's exactly right. We're a grant-making organization. And so we are a 501c3 organization, just like any of the other charities in town. But we are specifically for awarding grants. We work directly with primarily nonprofit organizations.
Right.
Most of them are 501c3s. And so that to accomplish charitable things through them. They have the expertise in their particular areas, and so we try to support them as best we can by providing funding when we can, or or support in some other way.
Yeah.
And
so let's get into real quick the catalyst you have in front of you. It's a beautifully printed magazine. It's a really easy and nice PDF to read online as well.
Awesome.
Very easily accessible. Thank you for that, by the way. It's really nice to know a lot of information. Let's share a little bit about, since you have it in front of you, who are some of your grantees? Who are the winners this year? I believe that's in the magazine, isn't it?
Well,
or you may have it memorized, but
yeah. Well, for Giving Week, we're announcing several grantees.
Okay.
And so, for example, yesterday we just announced a $10,000 grant to Faith, Hope, and Love Foundation for Brittany's Hope.
Yes.
And that comes from a special fund that we have called the Skylar M. Garinger Memorial Fund.
Okay.
And so that's a big one that we announced yesterday. They're not always that large, but it's significant. And there are several that are announced throughout the week, because as much as we are encouraging people to give to charities and to give to us during Giving Week, we are also giving to the community by doing grants during that week that we announce and highlight the work that is being done here in our town.
Okay. Another thing I noticed, you guys are heavy into scholarships too?
Oh, yes. In fact, really, scholarships are probably the work that keeps us busiest throughout every day of the year.
Okay,
and
yeah.
So, yeah, we do quite a few scholarships, and that's a great program.
So what's the average amount of scholarship recipients do you think you give every year? Because I think before we recorded, you mentioned you had 2 scholarship programs every year, correct?
Right. We've got one program that we call our traditional scholarship program, which is specifically for students who are graduating from high school and are going on to further their education, either in an academic degree or a vocational field.
Okay, all right, and yeah, because we know that workforce development, vocation fields are incredibly important, especially in our community.
Absolutely,
Great.
Absolutely. And so we have that program. That's the largest of the 2 programs that we have. And back then in the summertime, we have another scholarship program that is specifically for continuing students or returning students. So there's a lot of times where
kind of that non-traditional student.
Yeah. And this is our non-traditional scholarship program, is what we call it. And because there's a lot of students that may be working in jobs, or they may be raising a family, or they just decide they're working and they want to change their career. They want to do something different. They want to better their education, and they go back to school later. And so these scholarships are open for all of those students.
So much respect for somebody that goes back to school in a non-traditional sense, because when you're younger, right out of high school, right into college, as I did the college experience, it's a different mindset than when you go back. So a quick story, my mom said, I'm going to get my college degree before you, referring to myself, right? My mom was going to get her college degree before her son. She did in September of 2002, and I graduated college in December of 2002.
Nice.
Right. So I was like,
Good
that was
for her.
an incredibly proud moment. Of course, I was there for her and everything, but we're just in a family that had 2 parents who were non-traditional, had a family young, had to get to work, had to support us. So I really like to see that, because I know that is not always elevated at the level that it should be. So that was great.
Yeah. When I was in college, which has been quite some years ago now,
yeah.
but when I was in college, I remember in some of my classes, I made some friends that were a married couple that had kids, and they were both in school.
Right.
And they had jobs and worked, and they were your typical returning students. And let me tell you, they were so much better than the rest of us. They would run circles around us.
I know.
And I didn't have to go home and take care of a house or, take care of a family.
Different perspective when the money comes out of your pocket for it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
And
so the scholarships are great to help. I would just remember from non-traditional students and being a very traditional college student, just being like, oh, they always ask so many questions, right? Because they're paying for it themselves. They have a deeper level of thought and concern about it than you do when it kind of is handed to you a little bit, I think.
That's right. Well, and this year there was an example of an applicant that was a returning student, and she even put in her essay, she says, you know what, I don't know if I'm too old to apply for this. I don't know if you consider students like me. And I was just blown away because I thought, that's exactly the type of student that we consider in this program. And I happened to be at the office when she came after she was awarded a scholarship. She got one, and she came in to pick up the paperwork. And I was talking to her, and she told me the same thing. I said, no, you're exactly who we are looking for, and I am so glad you applied. And so it's exciting. The scholarship program's great. I love it.
What's the average amount of reward that you do give when it comes to a scholarship?
Well, we've got a lot of scholarships, and they really vary wildly.
Okay.
So a lot of them could be $500 for a year or $1,000 for a year. That's $1,000 is probably the biggest one.
Sure.
But we have others that are more than that, $1,500, $2,000. We have one that's significantly more than that too. And so it really kind of varies. And one of those things, you talk about perspective that you learn is once I had kids of my own that were in college, I go, oh my, every little bit helps.
Yeah.
And so it's made me, I think, even more passionate about encouraging students, both traditional and non-traditional, to apply because I know it really makes a big difference.
Yeah, it's so much more expensive than when we went to school too. Even with the state covering tuition in certain situations, it's so much more expensive than when we went. I graduated in 2002, and Eastern New Mexico University at that time was pretty inexpensive overall comparatively.
Sure.
But yeah, so the costs have always gone up dramatically. Let's see. So we talked about scholarships, we talked about your founding, talked about the grants, right? You guys have tons of grants. Is there anything I'm missing on grants?
Well, we do have an upcoming program.
Okay, right.
That's pretty exciting. Every October, we open up applications for the Chevron Catalyst Grant Program.
That's your competitive grant program, right?
Yes,
Great.
exactly. And so that started way back when, actually, we started talking about it with Chevron back in 2016. And it took a little while to get it off the ground. But by 2018, we started awarding grants from it. And so what happened was Chevron established a fund with us that is used for this purpose. And they are very generous in supporting it every year. But then the foundation are the ones that get to actually award the grants.
Right.
And the thought process behind that was that because we are so well embedded in the nonprofit community and everything that's going on here, that we would be able to address things that maybe the larger company wouldn't necessarily normally address.
Right.
But we could see the needs in different areas. And so it has worked out to be a fantastic partnership. And
how many years are you going on the Chevron Catalyst grant?
So 18 was the first year. So
okay, right,
yeah.
like 18, 19, 20, 21, like 6 years or so.
Yeah,
right. That's what I was saying. Going on our 7th year, maybe. Right.
Yeah.
Close enough.
And it's incredibly popular. And
so that's a new program since you became executive director.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
Yeah, it's one of the news things. And what's really exciting about it is, sometimes people go, "Ooh, it's a competitive grant process," and they get a little bit freaked out by it. I mean, because it's true, in any grants, if you've applied for grants before, you don't get every grant that you apply for, and that's the same with this. But it gives them a chance to put a good foot forward and say, hey, this is what we want to do. This is a special project, or this is a certain particular need, and we can do it. And so we've done grant amounts as low as $500, and then we typically go up to about $5,000.
Okay,
it's
great.
the max on this program.
That was absolutely my next question. So, like, how much? So thank you very much
I
for
stole
that.
your thunder, sorry about that.
No, I appreciate it. You guys are, I noticed, the headlining sponsor on the Energy Summit. Did I say that correctly?
No, actually, we're the fiscal sponsor.
Okay, fiscal
right.
sponsor. Great.
Yeah, and so that's another part of the foundation that I think a lot of people are surprised by.
Right.
When I go out and I speak to groups or people at Walmart or wherever else, and they say, what exactly does the foundation do? I always say, well, we award grants, we award scholarships, and we support community events and community needs. And one of the things that we do here with the Energy Summit is by serving as the fiscal sponsor is that many people actually contribute to a fund that's set up for the Energy Summit. And because we're a nonprofit organization, it's tax deductible.
Right.
And so then what we do is we turn around and we support the Energy Summit as an educational event.
Right.
Because what it does, for those who may not be familiar with it, it provides an opportunity for our local residents to get together and listen and talk to and question people in the industry, whether it's oil and gas, nuclear, mine, anything that's related to energy. And so when it started back, I think it was around 20.
This will be the 11th. I think this is the 11th.
Yeah.
I want to say this is the 11th year for the Energy Summit. I think Mayor Janaway, his last year was the 10th year. So this will be Mayor Lopez's first Energy Summit as mayor of Carlsbad. So we're going to go with the 11th year.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go.
Yeah.
with
No.
that.
Even if I'm not right, I said that so confidently with math behind it that I think that we're going to say that.
I was believing it. And so, no, I'm sure you're right because it did start just not that long before I started at the foundation. And so it's really it's a really good educational opportunity because especially, when we talk about energy here now in Carlsbad, we think a lot about oil and gas.
Yeah, but it's going in other directions as well.
So it is.
And then
It
we
always
have the
has been.
resources for all of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so, but the thing is that, back when I was a kid, oil and gas wasn't really a big part of the equation.
That's what everybody says. So my wife grew up here in Carlsbad, moved away for a little bit, came back. But the idea is that she's like, this is not how the oil and gas industry was forever down here, like when we were growing up. And for any newcomer down here, and I'll consider myself a newcomer, I've been here 3 years, right? Like it feels like this is how it always was.
Right. And it never was. It never was. And so what's important to me about this whole summit is that we're still learning. It may have been 11 years or however many.
Or 100 years of oil and gas, but we're still learning.
Yeah, but we are still learning. And the thing is, with the industry in the area being so successful, it changes a lot of things.
Yeah.
It brings in a lot of people that new to Carlsbad. It brings in a lot of great things. It brings in a lot of challenging things. And so whether we're talking about our educational system, the roads, housing, all of those things wind up getting discussed in one way or another at the summit, and you have an opportunity to learn about it. And so it's really a great thing.
And I really appreciate the idea of it being an energy summit. There's nothing discriminatory about Eddy County that says we only like energy in the form of oil and gas.
That's right.
It's like I like energy of all types. I like my TV operating in the evenings to stream my show. And yes, if I can get it from a clean source, that's great too. But I like energy in general. I like that hot shower in the morning. I like my hot coffee. Right. So it's an energy summit, and there's all types of energy. And so on the precipice of energy transitioning or not, Carlsbad and Eddy counties, we're there. We're all about it. We're welcoming of it, and we, including the nuclear industry as well. When it comes to whipping the waste, as you know more than anybody.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And that's one thing I really like about Southeast New Mexico, considering I lived in Albuquerque for so long, is that this is a really industry welcoming community, and I think there's a real nice balance. I'm going on a soapbox here, obviously, Mike, but right, I think there's a real nice balance between the industry and the environment with some organizations here that really focus on that as well.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's not nearly the fear-mongering, scaring that you hear other places.
That's right. And with the new industries in town, that also ties into the work that I do, because a lot of times the companies are here, their employees live here, and they have a vested interest in making sure that this community is as good as it can be as well. And they are good neighbors for the most part. They really do participate.
Yeah, so. This is home for me, my family, for you. This could be home for anybody else coming in as well. So I certainly appreciate the work that the Community Foundation will be doing. We've got a couple minutes left, and I do not want to get what was my question? What was the follow-up, the summit question? The summit question. We just did the summit question. The very last closing question that I have for you, and I'm afraid I probably know the answer already after talking to you a little bit. But, you've been executive director for 10 years. You seem to be doing an amazing job. A very, very healthy organization, obviously, right? So there's been some challenges. What would you say is your biggest challenge since you've been executive director?
Wow. And that's actually a much tougher question than you would think it would be, because you know what? There lots of little challenges come up along the way. But I think part of the biggest challenge initially was our scholarship program. We had converted it over from old paper copies and applications over to a whole online process and all this, and trying to keep current and make it relevant for students to encourage them to apply and make sure we're following all the rules and guidelines, because there are a lot of them.
Right.
And so I think that's probably been some of the biggest challenges. But other than that, I think a lot of it, and maybe it's because of my background, goes back to the communication challenge and making sure that people actually know about us.
Right.
Sometimes I feel like I'm yelling from the rooftops about the community foundation and what we do, and also the work that's done by nonprofits locally. And then every once in a while I'll run into somebody and they'll say, "Now, are you the city of Carlsbad, or are you the Chamber of Commerce, or are you the Department of Development?" And I say, no, we're our own entity, and you have to explain to them then what we do. And that's kind of a challenge to us. But, it's kind of a good challenge too, because a lot of times it's maybe new people coming to town. And once they understand what we do, there's usually a lot of interest, and that's great. So
yeah, that's well said. There's a lot of great organizations here in the community that are working towards making Carlsbad better. And it seems to be a greater need than ever with the influx of individuals and the services that we certainly need here. But I really appreciate you coming on. Mike Antiporda, the Executive Director of the Carlsbad Community Foundation. Go to their website.
www.carlsbadfoundation.org.
Okay. They have a great website, carlsbadfoundation.org. The Catalyst is really great to read in PDF form. I'm going to ask for one of those magazines if I could have one.
I brought them for you.
Okay, great, because I love them. We'll keep a couple here in the library where we happen to be recording. But thank you for coming on. Congratulations on what appears to be a very successful giving week, right?
Thank you very much.
And then real quick, I kind of remembered what I skipped over, but we're almost out of time. Go ahead and tell me briefly about who the Legacy Award winner is. Yes,
this year during Community Giving Week, we awarded the Carlsbad Community Foundation Legacy Award to Mike and Dina Garinger.
Okay.
And they're a tremendous pair that have just given so much to this community and everything they do. They've been involved in lots of our organizations, and they epitomize the philanthropic spirit. And so we're so pleased to recognize them. I think they're a real model for everybody else.
What a perfect couple to end the show on. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you so much.
You're listening to Community Forum on KCCC 930 AM, sponsored by Eddy County, honoring God, country, and family, thriving with industry since 1889.